What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Claudia Bellafato at the DraftKings studio in Boston, rocking with you guys on a Monday. We got a great show for everybody coming off the weekend. As always, download, subscribe, rate, and review it. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever you hear VSiN on the radio. Claudia, what do we got coming up this morning?
I just have to say it's good we have 2 hours because there is a lot to discuss from over the weekend, including NBA, all even. Nuggets and Pacers answer back in a big way. Hawks hit the lottery. Atlanta earns the top pick, and Detroit continues to stay bad because they miss out again. And the hype is real. Paul Skenes impresses in debut over the weekend. And we're going to get to all of that and much more. But it would be wrong not to start with this, guys. How was Mother's Day weekend? I hope you treated all the ladies in your life very nicely. Lots of flowers, maybe lots of money. What else?
Well, yeah, I you know what? It is a good reminder. Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there who celebrated. Yes. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there who may tune into this show. Lord knows my mother who watches every day. So shout out to Mom and thank you for everything you do. I tried to be the good son and send my mom, a gift card for a massage at a place near their house. I felt like I was doing a really good job. And then I got the text message from my dad on Sunday morning asking if I meant to send this to him or not. So plugging in the wrong email for that is tripping over the finish line in a pretty embarrassing way. Although not the worst that we've ever done, thankfully.
No, not the worst that we've ever done, though I don't think it was the worst we've ever done yet. All of a sudden I saw in my email that I got a nice gift certificate to a nice spa, and I thought, and it's not even Father's Day. And then I saw your mother's name, and I figured what happened, you made the mistake. So I begrudgingly filled her in. But it does bring up the story from years and years ago when Claudia, I don't know if you have heard this, when Mike and Jake were younger, but still old enough to go out and kind of look at things, and we all went out to try and get their mother a Mother's Day gift. And we ended up in, why am I blanking on the name of the place?
Sharper Image.
Sharper Image, that's right. The Sharper Image, which had all kind of new gadgets that are around. And this one had a row of massage chairs. So at one point, we were all sitting in a massage chair, looking at one another going, man, this feels good. Maybe we should get Mom a massage chair. So we all obviously agreed on that because we were all sitting in them, getting massaged. And sure enough, we brought it home, and sure enough, she hated the gift.
Oh.
But hated the gift. I was like, wait, this is, you do so much for the family. When you get some moments, you can go sit in there and relax and let the chair massage you. I thought it was a good thought, but did not go. It was one of those that did not go the way that we thought it would go.
Really? Well,
no, she immediately looked at us and said, you guys bought this so that you could use it. She put it up in me and my brother's room and never used it. We used it almost daily. She ended up making us right, but I firmly maintain, like my dad did, Claudia, that we bought that with the best possible intentions. I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Well, okay, I believe you, but also I could see my mom saying the same thing and something to the degree of what moments are you speaking about? Because I have a million things to do. I don't have time to sit in the massage chair. So I don't know if that's where she was coming from or if she just didn't like it. But do better, guys.
I don't think she liked it at all. And when we moved, this was at our house when we were at ESPN. When we finished at ESPN and we were moving our stuff, I remember saying, "What about the massage chair?" And I got a look that immediately shut me down and shut me up and said, that massage chair ain't going anywhere.
Dang.
That is not coming along for the ride.
Now you know.
Yeah, rest in power to that massage chair. It was a great one. Sharper Image, great store. And I was glad that my gift of a massage didn't come with any PTSD from that. It seems like we finally got this right years and years and years later. So thankfully that was the case, Dad.
Yes, it is. And I hope everybody had a great Mother's Day. We have obviously your mom and your sister and my daughter Sydney with their daughter Alex and of course my daughter-in-law Jenny, Jake's wife, and their son Jackson. So all mothers now celebrating. It's very cool to see the next generation coming up and being a grandfather and your mother being a grandmother, or Gigi as we call her. It's a very cool thing. It's a great day, and obviously, it's like Veterans Day, where there should not be one day that you thank veterans. Veterans should be thanked every single day, and the same with mothers, because mothers do everything there is to do, so they should be thanked every single day.
It is a lot of work for the rest of us, though, with all the mothers that you mentioned. Like, I got a lot of mothers in my life now, a lot of friends who become moms. So I got to make sure I send out all the text messages to everybody because you don't want anyone to feel left out there. So it's a full-time job wishing everybody a happy Mother's Day. And there should be a happy Mother's Day for the people that wish people a happy Mother's Day on Mother's Day, Claudia.
Before we get to basketball, that reminds me, and Mom, love you. I know you're watching too. Happy Mother's Day. I was with her all day yesterday. We're going to the spot tomorrow. It's going to be great. But my dad, we were all sitting down at lunch. And my mom mentioned, so-and-so texted me Happy Mother's Day. And my dad with a straight face, why didn't you tell me? Now I have to text the wife Happy Mother's Day. You should have told me earlier. Now I look like, hey. And I'm like, I didn't really think about it. That is a lot of work for you guys. I don't feel bad at all, but it is a lot of work.
It is a chain reaction, yes, of who you have to make sure that you text, that you don't leave out. Yeah, there is something to that. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I'm glad, Claudia, that you, in the midst of all of the pain you suffered with the Bruins, didn't let that ruin your Mother's Day afternoon with your mom. You guys, I'm sure, had such a great time. Your mom seems like a wonderful lady. And so the fact that there was a heinous blown call at the end of the Bruins-Panthers game and the fact that they're now seemingly giving this series away after some early success, I'm glad you didn't let that weigh on you too much.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you wanted to go there. Again, we will talk basketball, but very quickly, because I have been arguing with men on Twitter since 5 a.m. According to Rule 69.1, if a defending player has been pushed, shoved, or fouled by an attacking player so as to cause the defending player to come into contact with his own goalie, such contact shall be deemed contact initiated by the attacking player. That is the definition for what, guys? Goaltending interference. And if you want a video explanation of that, just watch that Bruins-Panthers game. And no, I'm not making excuses. There is a massive shot disparity. The Panthers have been the better team. But this was an equalizing goal by Sam Bennett after he pushed Charlie Coyle onto the goaltender, Swayman. Swayman could not stop the puck. Coyle could not defend the puck. And then the Bruins called for the goaltending. And the ref said, oh, no, they watched that. Tell me how you watched that. And then read the definition and said, no, that's not the same thing. So then they got two extra minutes penalty.
That's tough.
So thanks,
That's
GoJo,
tough
for going there. Yeah.
That is tough because we always do spout out. I know as former players that you don't want to say it doesn't come down to one call. There are plenty of opportunities in the game. So you spout that over and over again, but then you see a bad call and you're like, man, that one really hurt. That call is a pretty important call. So you try and play both sides of that of not putting it on one, because I'm with you on the call. But then you go to the other side of it and say, okay, there's opportunities, as you said, getting outshot. There's ways to be in this game and not make that, have the equalizing goal and such. But it's tough when it's against your team. I get it.
They had 2 goals on 5 shots in the first period. So they could have won that game. And look at game 1. That's all I'll say.
Oh, boy.
Basketball?
Yeah, that's all Claudia will say. She's been muttering like a conspiracy theorist around here since she walked into the building this morning. So if you're a man online who's got some time on your hands, so does Claudia, and she will absolutely come and willingly read you the riot act. You can also hear Claudia later today on the Lombardi line with her and Michael Lombardi on VSiN from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. I'm correct on that, right, Claudia?
Yeah. And Michael's not a hockey guy, but he's going to hear it today, all right? He is a basketball guy, though, so let's go there. The Nuggets and Pacers went into the weekend down 0-2 in their series and came out Monday all tied up. Denver winning both of their games in Minnesota on the road. Pacers took care of business at home against the Knicks. You can see here Nuggets, Timberwolves. Pretty close in the first, second started getting away. In the end, this was not a blowout by any means, but I think comforting for Denver fans to see the Nuggets sort of rounding back into form. A little depressing for Timberwolves fans. I know we have a few in the building here to see such a strong start and to see them fall behind here. And how about the Knicks, man? Talk about keeping it close and gas running out, as I mentioned. Yeah. The second game by 32 points. 32-point loss for them. So lots to talk about here. Just crazy in general, though, GoJo, to see these series flip on their heads just over the weekend.
Yeah, if you had put someone into like a soundproof room or whatever and gave them the NBA from before the weekend, didn't let them watch any of it on the weekend, I think it would be stunning because, Dad, this isn't just, competitive series completely flipped on their heads. It was teams that looked like they were getting left for dead. The Knicks were bullying the Indiana Pacers. The Oklahoma City Thunder had gotten off to such a hot start against Dallas. But I think the premier one here, the Timberwolves looked like one of the best teams in basketball, if not maybe the best team currently playing through the first 2 games of their series against the Denver Nuggets team that just flat out did not look like they wanted to be there. We had all the rumors about Jokic horse stuff making their way in there. And then as soon as Rudy Gobert comes back after the birth of his child, which we have had someone blame Rudy Gobert's baby for the slide since that moment in time, now they've all of a sudden come back, and this Denver Nuggets team, Dad, seems to have remembered who they were and reminded people that they're the best team in the NBA and that they might actually be able to come back and win this series if you get Jamal Murray confident enough to be singing halftime buzzers and then mean-mugging Kevin Harlan at the desk while he makes the call for one of the coolest sports visuals of the year.
Yeah, the end of that half we'll get to was absolutely incredible. What a swing it was. It was a 7-point game that turned into a 15-point game with about 20 seconds to go in the half. Was amazing. But this one, to me, we talk about Murray doing that. We'll talk about Joker, going 35-7-7 and playing an incredible game. But, Mike, this was Aaron Gordon. What Aaron Gordon was able to do, whether guarding big men or guarding guards, bringing the ball up, what he was able to, forgetting his stats, which are hard to forget, you can't, but it's the ancillary things. 27 points, 11 to 12 from the field, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. But what he did is he took the pressure off Jamal Murray, right? Jamal Murray in this game, he did take 17 shots, but didn't have to bring the ball up, didn't have to put added pressure onto that strained calf. It was Gordon bringing the ball up, then giving it to Murray. So they kind of exchanged some roles there to not put as much on Murray, not have to move around as much, because we know how Minnesota loves to be up on you playing that stifling defense. Would have made Murray work a lot more just to get the ball over half court. So I thought that was incredible. The versatility of Gordon, plus another one who we sit there and talk about because of Austin Rivers, NBA guys that can play NFL, NBA. Aaron Gordon's a dude that looks like he could play in the NFL. I mean, he is a good-looking athlete, and like I said, covering bigs, covering smalls. His shooting percentage was incredible. I thought he was the major difference in this game.
I've said for a while now, Aaron Gordon's the swing state for when Denver really goes from very good team to nuclear option, because he is a football player playing basketball. I would love to see Aaron Gordon rush the passer, because I feel like he would do it with that same sort of reckless abandon that he tears toward the rim with, that he runs from the dunker spot with, and that, to your point, when he gets going even a little bit, he was 11 to 12. I think 5 of those shots came outside the restricted area, so there was some outside shooting mixed in. That's a mid-range, a couple of threes, but Dad, what he affords you in that regard. And just, you're right, how smart this team is and how well they can adjust. Nikola Jokic starting to initiate more from the top of the key or near the elbow to try and draw one of those bigs out from the bottom there and not allow them to come down and trap and double team him in the low block, and really make the Minnesota Timberwolves defensively, led by the now 4-time Defensive Player of the Year in Rudy Gobert, look like the Bad News Bears down on the block while he toyed with them and controlled everything. And Dad, as this series now becomes a best of 3 here, it shifts the balance back in favor of the defending champions, where this Wolves team got a marquee playoff performance from Anthony Edwards, who went out there and scored 44 points, and I believe after the game is still reeking of confidence. Like, Anthony Edwards, you're going to have to kill him to beat him. And last night after the game, when you hear him talking about chirping Jamal Murray, you can see this guy is wired for the fight. It's the rest of the team I have concerns about.
Anthony, did you have any words with Jamal or any of the Nuggets at the end of the game there? Looked like you might have
I just told his ass, that's what we love that. Keep talking that. That's what we like. Well, I love it, So, he ain't say nothing back, but I'm pretty sure he heard me. They heard me. Yeah, we live for that.
And Dad, not a little thing, like that slip there, I don't think he meant anything by it, but when he says, well, I love that stuff, last night felt like Anthony Edwards in the Pips. And going forward in the rest of this series now, we can excuse away a bad night for a lot of people, but Ant said it. This team tends to go as Karl Anthony Towns goes in terms of what he can provide opposite Anthony Edwards. And right now, I don't know. If you're asking me to bet now and handicap the rest of this series and say who I have more faith in, it's the Denver Nuggets. It's now that we've seen, okay, they are active, engaged, and have adjusted again. That's the kind of stuff that comes from a championship team who, when we all leave them for dead, never loses their cool and has the ability and the pieces involved, like you mentioned with Aaron Gordon, to go and make the changes necessary.
I love Anthony Edwards. I mean, 22 years old. Dude is just incredible. But this is one of those classic, let the star hits all the points, right? And scores all the points, scores in the 40s. We've seen guys score in the 40s and the 50s, but their team losing. That's all that matters. We can sit there and say how great Anthony Edwards is. And you look at Minnesota, they out-rebounded Denver 42-31. They had 7 more offensive rebounds as well. They controlled the boards, but didn't win the game. Because Denver had too much. They didn't get enough from the other players from Minnesota when they got the contribution from the others in Denver. And I'd be interested, Claudia, especially in how the odds may have swung in this game now all of a sudden. Because, by the way, a home team is not won in this game. A home team is not won in the first 4 games of this series.
Well, you're totally right, Senior. This is why we always talk about trying to get ahead of the market. So when the Nuggets were down 0-2, I said, this is the time. If you believe in Denver to bounce back, grab them at plus money. Well, now they're minus 165. And now the Timberwolves plus 140. So now's the time if you believe in Minnesota to bounce back. If you dig into those stats, if you like what you saw from Anthony Edwards, and you do think they can make a comeback, now's the time to bet the Timberwolves. But GoJo, it sounds like you are on Denver. Senior, I'm curious if you find any value in the plus money with Minnesota.
Not as much as I did when it was Denver in the plus money. If people weren't listening to you then, they've learned a valuable lesson, and they should listen to you about when to jump onto something. I would be way more confident jumping on that than I would on Minnesota. I think Denver has their confidence, is playing well. I know, and I don't know how much is true that we were heard that Joker's worried about his horses and this and that. I mean, this team looked really good, especially again at the end of that first half on that 8-point swing on Murray's half-court shot as time ran out. It was incredible. So I am not as in all honesty, Mike, on Minnesota now being plus money with that series tied up 2-2.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jokic has kind of become this character that we can sort of project stuff onto, and he's got the weird interest. And we've talked about last year, to Dad's point we made last week, hey, it was kind of funny when we talked about Jokic doesn't really seem like he cares about basketball that much, but he's so good at it that he can lift a team to the title. He's been the best player in the NBA for basically the last 4 years running now, even accounting for the year where Embiid won the MVP. But he's kind of monotone. And I saw Claire DeLune, who writes about the NBA over at The Guardian, said he's kind of he's the most even-keeled superstar that we got. And it's funny because it made me think of Claudia's Boston Celtics, where you've got two teams that kind of operate similarly in the fact that we never feel like we get the kind of energy that we want out of a leader like Jason Tatum. He's relatively monotone, but hasn't accomplished to the level of Nikola Jokic yet, both individually or as a champion in the NBA. But for Jokic on the other side, the difference in this game tends to be you've got that one, all the different parts of that team that we've talked about between Michael Porter Jr. as the shooter, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, and what he affords you, some of the depth on that roster. But I do think that little added edge that comes from Jamal Murray going like we said, going like we said, snarling at the desk, doing all that, and Mike Malone, their head coach, who's always kind of had that edge about him too. And you combine that with the fact that they're just a flat-out great basketball team, it makes them really dangerous in my mind going forward now that it appears to have clicked in.
We mentioned the end of the half. It was 56-49, a 7-point lead for Denver as 20 seconds ago. And then Denver scores the last 8 points, including a bucket. And then there's only a few seconds left. Minnesota's trying to get it down court quick for a quick shot, and Murray steals it at half court and throws one up at the buzzer and nails it for an 8-0 run and a 15-point lead. And I just loved it. He was standing there almost face to face with Kevin Harlan. It was what an incredible moment that was, looking at those two looking at one another.
We have been so fortunate to have a lot of great announcers on during this postseason. We talked to Gus Johnson last week and everything, but Kevin Harlan, perpetually ready for the moment, just staring right back at a snarling Murray, delivering the goods. All right, we got Mic'd Up Monday coming up in about 10 minutes with some good NFL sound from over the weekend. We got some of the rookies in the building saying weird things. We've also got, guys, the news of NFL's opening game that got announced this morning. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting that the Ravens at the Chiefs will kick off the NFL season on Thursday Night Football this year. And, Dad, I know you have said you're not in on the schedule release, but there is something about seeing it crystallize like that had the football in me rise up to the top and was already frothing at the mouth thinking about how cool that game's going to be.
I agree. You look at matchups. We look at that in college all the time because there's no preseason games, and a lot of times teams will play, kind of easy teams to ease their way in. And it's not that same way in the NFL, but there's certainly a difference, of those two teams matching up and then two other teams, a lesser team than the Ravens. But let's remember, and I'll say it right now, this is not a revenge game. If Baltimore wins, fans don't be like, well, we got revenge on them. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You lost in the AFC Championship game to them, and the Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl. So winning game one of the next season in the regular season is not a revenge game if you were to win.
It's just weird. You're absolutely correct on that. It never, and the players don't feel like that either, to be clear, because it's not going to put a ring on their finger or change their future. Right. It is very interesting to think, though, that the Chiefs team that started last year with hurt Travis Kelce in game one, holding out Chris Jones in game one, lost at home to the Detroit Lions game one, and was listless throughout most of the year by their standards at receiver, won the championship, and now is walking into a season where they are solidified at those positions. They have re-signed Travis Kelce, their head coach, their GM, their star defensive player, their quarterback still lives there, and they drafted the really fast guy at receiver in the NFL. So it seems set up for somehow that to correlate into a letdown if it were any other team but the Chiefs. On the other side, that Ravens team, so much difference heading into this year, Dad, with a hockey line changed offensive line. Derrick Henry's in that backfield now. Lamar Jackson's slim thick again. So lots different going on for them.
There is, and the only difference there will be of last year's Kansas City game, of which we did our show there for opening day on that Thursday, is they lost to Detroit, a team from the NFC. If they were to lose this game, it would be a little different because then they'd be a game down to the Ravens when we sit there and talk about home field. Now, it doesn't matter. The Ravens had home field last year, and Kansas City went on the road, a team that had been so used to just being at home in the playoffs. But it would be a little different being a conference loss. Should that happen, we will see. We have plenty of time to talk about the schedule being released in a couple of days. And man, I can't wait. I just can't wait. Can't wait.
You practicing for your Westwood One schedule release show right now? There you go. Perfect. I think you've almost blown your microphone out with excitement.
All right. Sorry, you're breaking up on me.
God help him. All right.
My bad.
All right, there we go. Perfect. Things are going great right now. Why don't we save the talk on that and instead talk about the fatigue that we're seeing from the New York Knicks? I think we talked about the Minnesota Timberwolves getting flipped on their head this weekend, but the interesting question is going to become now for a couple of the teams that have really started to struggle, Claudia, is for the New York Knicks, do they have enough gas left in the tank? And for Oklahoma City, can all of this incredibly talented youth that we've seen on display find a way to counterpunch from what Luka Doncic and this Mavs team have done? But let's hear from Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks first, because they have been the team that have captivated everyone through the postseason. They have gone out here and grit grinded their way through everything. Tom Thibodeau seemed to finally have the perfect weapon forged in his likeness on the court in Jalen Brunson. And now we're looking at a team that, oh man, maybe all of that style of play is finally catching up to them. Here was Jalen Brunson last night talking about the fatigue that the team is feeling now.
I mean, we can talk about fresher legs. We can give us all the pity that we want. Yeah, we're shorthanded, but that doesn't matter right now. We have what we have, and we need to go forward with that. So there is no we're shorthanded. There is no excuse. There's no excuse whatsoever. Now, if we lose, we lose.
And Claudia, I'm not surprised that that's the reaction that we're getting from this team in particular, because they're not an excuse-making bunch. They're the ultimate basketball movie team. But I do think that has become a factor. It's not an excuse. It's a reality that when you're running now basically a six-man rotation with some change built into that eventually against a team that represents everything that's opposite of you. And we talked to Tom Habistro about it. This is the worst matchup the Knicks could have had. That slow drip of Pacers pace is finally seeming to take hold and getting the Knicks right where they want them.
Well, and the Pacers adjusted doing the one thing that they had to, and that was swarming Brunson, and they put Aaron Nesmith against him. Now Brunson shooting 9 of 27 against him. We knew that he was dealing with that right foot, but you talked about it. It's just fatigue in general. Despite how much cardio you have in you when you're playing to the level that he was, it's tough. So over the last 2 games, Brunson missed 10 jumpers short. And this is interesting, GoJo. I don't know how much we want to read into this. This is really nitpicky for the stat guys, but Second Spectrum tracking says Brunson was jumping about 2.5 inches lower on his shots than his season-long average. Is that getting too statty and too into the numbers? Or is that, speaking to his athleticism sort of hurting because of this gas leaving the tank?
I would probably need to ask a basketball person, Dad, before I was willing to truly buy in too much. But at the same time, this is a guy dealing with a foot injury who's also probably got dead legs because, again, what we had seen, the novelty with this Knicks team is we have been constantly waiting for this moment that I think we've gotten now where it seems like they finally had that lactic acid build up too much. But before they'd pushed through in a way that was uncommon and in a game where you've got Jalen Brunson not getting that lift. You've got Josh Hart with only 3 rebounds in a basketball game. Like that to me is the sirens going off saying, hey, if even that guy who looks like one of the best conditioned athletes in sports can't hack it anymore, Dad, the Knicks may have finally exhausted the last bit of the fumes of gas left in the tank.
I think this is what we have been talking about, right? And when it was going to show itself, and it showed itself. In the other series we've talked about in Minnesota and Denver where a home team has not won, a home team has won all these games. I don't know how it's going to change. Josh Hart admitting he's feeling fatigued, playing the first 10 quarters with no break. I mean, DiVincenzo, his shots are going off. And forgetting the jumping, Claudia, which I can't tell by the naked eye. It's an interesting stat. What I do know in talking to basketball players is when you're fatigued, and I think it's pretty commonsensical, is your shots end up short. And you talked about in the last 2 games, Jalen, 10 of those shots are coming up short. I definitely think that has something to do with legs. So it's tough for it to get any better. That's for sure.
Well, I'm looking at the free throw disparity, too. Pacers had a ton of fouls. The Knicks got to the line 31 times, but they shot 71% from it. Pacers only got to the line 8 times, guys. So there was a big difference there. I do want to talk about the odds quickly here, though. Again, trying to get ahead of the market. If you do like the Pacers, although getting them at plus money was better, right now they're minus 120. Some people might argue with the way the Knicks are looking that now's the time to jump on it because this might be the cheapest price you'll get the Pacers at. Senior, agree?
I agree. I agree. Just how I agreed with you in the Denver, get them when it was plus, to do it with the Pacers even more because, listen, Minnesota was playing great. So still taking the Denver when they were plus money a game ago or a couple games ago would have been the smart play. But here you could kind of see it rolling as we were talking about when the Pacers were plus money. You knew that the Knicks, between injury and playing time, they were running on fumes, and it is finally catching up to them. So that was probably even smarter plus money to bet on, just seeing what was going on with the Knicks and who was able to be on the court and how they're getting worn down.
The Knicks can win one way right now, and that's by grinding it out, winning close games. And we saw that in MSG with this Pacers team for the first couple of nights where they kept it close. They weren't out of these games. In game 2, they had a lead for, I think, a lion's share of the middle of that game before the Knicks came roaring back. And now we've seen on the other side of this, and for a team that has been decimated by injury all year long heading into the postseason, the OG Anunoby injury might have been the final death blow there. 26-5 with OG on the court this season, where the Knicks 13-16 without him on a court. And at this juncture, where depth was already depleted, Claudia's right. You go out there and you harass the head of the snake in Jalen Brunson, and then everything else seemed to fall off. Donte DiVincenzo, who's been a revelation during this postseason, couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in this game. And so when every one of your guys looked like this slow decline, because it didn't all the way fall off, it was this slow decline that now all of a sudden ramped up. This Knicks team has the heart of a champion, and if we're putting this on an even playing field, they're the better basketball team. But part of the series is having the legs to get you through the final push of this, and I just don't think this Knicks team can be expected to hold up that end of the bargain anymore.
Yes, as you can see, it is a mic'd up Monday here on GoJo and Golic. And rookie mini camps opened, which gave us lots of sound to go over, starting with Detroit's first round pick, Terrion Arnold. On Friday, Mother's Day weekend, of course, coming up, he talked about how important his mother was to building his competitiveness as a player.
When I used to beat my mom in racing, like I had to genuinely beat her. When we used to fight, when I was younger, just wrestling with her or playing around, like, man, I'll never forget, like, one time my mom kicked my tooth out because we were just going at it so hard. So if my mom was out here right now and she lined up across me as a receiver, I would jam her into the dirt. That's just that's my mindset.
What? Does that not sound strange to you?
Well, listen,
Hey,
you know what?
It sounds like Mama Arnold's got that dog in her.
You know what? Dudes was the first round pick in the NFL. So,
I guess it worked, yeah.
But boy, at the time, that would be something people watching, seeing those two going at it if that was out in at a field or something.
I mean, listen, this is not super far off. My dad and I, when I was in college, my dad always said, because Mark Schlereth used to talk about the speech that he would give his kids about when they felt like he was ready to take them, we'll go to a hotel, we'll clear out all the furniture, and we'll do it the right way there, and then we'll see the dust settle on the other side. My dad always kind of joked around with that stuff. My dad was a high school and collegiate wrestler, and so he said, we were at my grandmother's house for Easter, and he said, you feeling froggy? We'll go outside and do this, and we wrestled on the front lawn of my grandmother's house in Willowick, Ohio, in front of the whole neighborhood like a bunch of freaks wearing jeans and polos for Easter Sunday. I won, but nobody felt like winners after that.
No, it did not feel like a winner.
Did you fight your mom?
No.
Okay.
Me, he fought me.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, I did rock my mom one time pretty bad when she was trying to help us get ready for football, Dad. You used to take us out to run drills at the middle school by our house, and I must have been, in 8th grade or high school when Mom caught the wrong end of the climb to the linebacker level?
It might have been 8th grade because you didn't play 8th grade. You were a little too husky to play that year and the weight limit. So I would take Claudia, I would take the boys out, Mike and Jake, to the field. Jake was more like a tight end and Mike was an O lineman. And their mother came out one time and I had one of those handheld like blocking dummies that you could that I would use as well. So to try and work them both in, I had Mike at center, shotgunning to me, and for Jake, it was going to be a pass play. I said, Jake, run this route, and I'm going to pass it to you. Mike, we're going to work on you getting to the second level. So you play it like a run play, like you're scooping with your guard, and you're going off to block the linebacker. And I had Chris, Mike's mother, stand at linebacker level with the pad. And Mike was to go to the second level and make the block while I threw the pass to Jake. Very simple. One was a pass, one was a run. I call the cadence. Mike hikes the ball. I step and I throw to Jake. And as I'm throwing to Jake, out of the corner of my eye, I see Mike destroy his mother. Hit her so hard, she did a back kind of an ass over tea kettle on her back, flipped back over, sunglasses go flying. She's laying on the ground. Mike's still going upfield like he's blocking more people, didn't even see what he did. I'm like, Mike, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing destroying your mom? His line to me, I thought she was going to stand a little tougher. That was his line to me.
She had the bag. Yeah. She had the bag. She had the bag. I didn't think we'd have given her the bag if she wasn't out there ready for a little bit of contact.
Poor Chris, man.
Just see, again, out of the corner of my eye as I'm throwing the pass play to Jake, and just hearing that sound of a player hitting one of those blocking dummies and seeing your mother airlifted till she fell on her ass and rolled over backward, I was just like, okay. I'm like, Chris, you go on off to the side. We're not going to do this anymore since Dillweed here doesn't know how to back off on his own mom.
And a star was born.
Hey, you know what? Exactly. Throw that one on the Rivals highlight tape there. Me, Terry, and Arnold both potentially burying our moms when given the opportunity to on a football field. Sorry, Mom. I love you. Claudia, let's get to Jim Harbaugh frothing at the mouth ready. If anyone else would probably decleat their mother, it would be Jim Harbaugh.
Yes.
I guess so. Also, he's pretty good with his words. So he was asked about his O-line and Joe Alt, of course, with the rookie camp. And instead of answering that, he came out with this.
It's just overall, it hit me this morning about 3:34 in the morning. Woke up, staring straight at the ceiling, and said to myself, "It's not just another day; it's today." And maybe that's just another way of saying, attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. But yeah, it was a great day.
It's the heavy breathing for me, Senior.
I'm wondering how soon, because meeting rooms in college and the NFL are vastly, vastly different. And as you're sitting there as an 18 to 22-year-old hearing Jim Harbaugh do his Jim Harbaugh speak, you kind of are into it and listening because you're young and wide-eyed. When you're in the NFL, even though this dude has had NFL experience and people know him, at some point, Mike, though the talk in the meeting rooms, especially during the season, guys are tired. They're going to tune them out at some point, don't you think? I mean, they just are. I mean, just hearing that over and over again, if he's saying that stuff in the meeting rooms, and I don't know if he is or not, I don't know. But if he is, given those kind of things, at some point, guys are just going to be like, okay, can we get to the next part of the meeting here?
This is the perfect energy for rookie minicamp, though. Bunch of guys violating tempo, fighting for their football lives out there. He is matching the energy of the group that he is with right now. And as a 3-time rookie minicamp survivor, I can assure you that energy will be well received out there because it's a bunch of guys who are going to get, futures in front of the mic or selling enterprise rent-a-car or any number of things who are out there on their last football breath. So enjoy it, fellas. Hope everyone had a great weekend there. Claudia, let's finish up with Xavier Legette, who I feel like in a sea of everything that has happened since with what's gone on in Buffalo and their star wide receiver acquisition in the draft, we've forgotten about Xavier Legette a bit.
But how can you forget? Because his speak is just amazing. Panthers first-round pick out of South Carolina. Every time he says something, it usually comes out as a soundbite. So this time he was asked about usual football stuff, but then he got into his well-documented love of horses. Watch out, Joker.
When I was about 5 years old, and ever since I was a little boy, my uncle, he would bring the horses to my house every day for my birthday, and then we'll go out there to the horse stable on the weekends.
You have your own horse?
Oh, yeah.
What's his name?
Dollar Bill.
What's that?
Dollar Bill.
Dollar Bill?
Yeah, it's a racking horse. one that's still pretty.
I didn't catch that last part, but I did hear that he said he had a horse named Dollar Bill. And how can you not listen to him and smile, guys? Come on.
We've got a couple of star personalities in the wide receiver class this NFL, Dad, between Keon Coleman, who's been a revelation in Buffalo with the jackets I saw he just got from somebody along the way, and with Xavier Legette, who walks into a very interesting situation, by the way, in Carolina. Country as the day is long, but part of an offseason where, Dad, I saw all of a sudden was looking down before the show today, and the Panthers went out and did some work, drafting Xavier Legette and JT Sanders out of Texas, the tight end, bringing Deontay Johnson over from Pittsburgh, drafting Jonathan Brooks, bringing Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis over on the offensive line. They're giving Bryce Young some stuff to work with around him here that might take a little while to come together, but they saw the dire straits and actually did something about it, so kudos to them.
Dire straits. Adam Thielen led them with 103 receptions. Second place was Jonathan Mingo with 43. They had to do something, and they did. This wide receiver class, we could be talking about this as the greatest depth-wise wide receiver class we have ever had. And this dude, Legette, I mean, they talk about him looking like Metcalf, and DK Metcalf. He's 6'3", 6'4", about 227, 230. Built incredibly well, and now with the attitude of loving the horses, which we love from Joker. So I'm excited for this year, and personality like crazy right now. Now we'll see how that personality is as they get into, veterans and start the season and such. But we talked about this wide receiver group being the most depth there was in this draft, and I can't wait to see all these guys on the field.
You're so true. You're so right. It'll be a good test of the modern NFL culture because right now all the rookies are hanging out with each other and you're the first round pick and everybody loves you. Yes. And very soon you're going to start drowning because Dan Orlovsky was showing off that NFL playbook on Twitter over the weekend. You're going to get handed all the rest of that when you start to meet the regular team. And the first thing the head coach walks in the meeting room and says to all the rookies is, "Welcome, fellas. You're behind by weeks. And in most cases, in actuality, by years. Good luck."
GoJo Golic, MLB's top pitching prospect, made his debut, former LSU pitcher, now Pirates pitcher Paul Skenes, in just 4 innings. Yes, 6 hits, but 7 strikeouts more importantly. Yes, he walked 2 guys, 3 earned. 84 pitches though, 17 of them were over 100 miles per hour. Now remember, the question was, will he live up to the hype, guys? Because he had a sub-1 ERA in AAA, just absolutely destroying everybody. It's a small sample size, but I think we can say he's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, no, Dad, I was going to say, all things considered, given the excitement around this, given that getting the call up means he was probably out of his normal rhythm and routine, he looked pretty comfortable out there. We knew he's got an absolute howitzer for an arm. We know he's got some great variety in his bag in terms of pitches, but went out there and looked comfortable in the second inning, had bases loaded with an out and managed to get out of that jam. And so navigated through some murky waters and ultimately had a pretty good day.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he kind of covered everything. As we mentioned, 3 runs, gave up 6 hits, 1 a home run, a couple of walks, and the 7 strikeouts. Threw 84 pitches in this one with, as we talked about, 17 being over 100 miles an hour. I mean, you just sit there and wonder in this era of arm injuries, how do you keep up that pace, right? I don't know. I'm not a pitcher. I wasn't Little League. That was about it, as you guys were. But we talk about it over and over. We had Rob Dibble on, former Major League Baseball player and pitcher who threw a lot of gas, and that's what Skenes does. But he's got other pitches too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's got they were explaining one of the pitchers like a splitter sinker, like a splinker or something like that. I don't know what the hell they were calling it, but man, he was fun to watch. But you just sit there and wonder, can you keep up that pace of triple-digit pitches, Claudia?
Yeah, he's going to get in his bag. Don't worry about that. But I don't even know if I mentioned the fact that he struck out 7, which is very impressive in just 4 innings. So I was curious to look to see if they took down the number, which they did, because they put up a season-long strikeout number for him only at 109.5. And I said it on the Sweat this weekend, that is too low. If he can stay healthy, that is too low. You usually want a bigger payout, though, and you don't really get that with those type of props. What you do, though, is with the market of Rookie of the Year. And right now he's at 13-1 in the NL, 7th in the odds, and plus 10,000 for Cy Young. So I don't know about Cy Young. He has a long time to get that, but Rookie of the Year is something I would jump on.
I was just going to say, you know what? We can guard expectations some for a guy where that's going to go out the window, because we had Tim Kirkjian on last week, and this is the kind of praise that he was leaping his way in terms of the comparison for the anticipation over the debut.
I think, and I overstate things sometimes, I think the Paul Skenes debut will be the most anticipated non-Yamamoto Ohtani debut since Steven Strasburg. I think you could make a case.
Well, I mean, we made a
someone
case.
Else agreed with him. Joey Votto took to Twitter over the weekend and said, watching Skenes reminds me of facing Strasburg after he called up. He said, I took fastball on my first at bat, looked up and saw 100 on the board, and I thought, uh-oh, the next pitch, the best curveball I've ever seen, gulp. Same thing could be said about the changeup later, and I knew it was over. So the beautiful game keeps going forward, and Dad, that's the kind of comparison for a guy that, I will say this, physically imposing, obviously 6'6", big dude, absolute hoss pitcher that we all got acquainted with during that LSU run. Mustache is doing a lot of work, because now that he is around grown men, you very clearly see this is a big baby-faced kid that's got the mustache on to try and convince you that he is a grown man out here with everybody else. But much like a stack of kids wearing a trench coat, we've got Vincent Adultman pitching on the mound right now, throwing absolute gas. And so I'm excited for him, but it's good time to remind yourself, like, oh man, this is a 21-year-old kid that's about to go out here and still, I'm sure, do some learning along the way.
He got everybody's attention, though, no doubt about that, and what he was able to do. And as we mentioned, he's got other pitches. He's got a bag of pitches, not just that fastball. And oh, by the way, in the game, he started. There were 6 other pitchers for the Pirates who won a 10-9 game. He had a no decision in this game, by the way. Left a couple of runners on before he was pulled. So yeah, this was a wild game, by the way. The way it went, ended up 10-9. The Pirates won it in a crazy game, but everybody was talking about Skenes, as they should, just to see what this potential is starting to see. We're starting to see with him.
There was about a 2-hour and 20-minute weather delay in there, too, after he had gotten pulled. So it kind of went off the rails a little bit there. Claudia, I think another interesting subplot to kind of keep in mind, and it's not the perfect comparison, but we saw the NFL last year very much leaned into Taylor Swift's popularity once the relationship with her and Travis Kelce went mainstream, and whether it was the broadcast or just the general NFL social teams using her and all these different ways to clearly draw in a different section of the fan base, you saw a very concerted effort going into this first start from Paul Skenes for Major League Baseball, who from their main social accounts was tweeting out all of the Livvy Dunn content. Livvy Dunn, the girlfriend of Paul Skenes, the LSU gymnast who's been in the NIL era, one of the superstars of this first wave of young athletes who have been able to go and monetize their name, image, and likeness. Claudia, she was all over the broadcast for this game, up in the box with Paul's family watching, and all over the MLB's packaging of this event in a way that I thought was really interesting.
That is what we call a power couple. And everybody has to relax and do some research, because I was reading the comments, knew they were coming when they posted those on socials, and all these dudes out of left field. Who even is that? Nobody cares, blah, blah, blah. Like, she's an insane athlete herself, so let's relax there. But yes, we all love a supportive girlfriend. And of course, she had a lot to say about the debut.
You've got to see him go through a lot in his career, though. You got to witness LSU in the championships. Where will this moment rank in your memory, though?
I mean, I have so many amazing memories with him, but I know how hard he's worked for this moment and all the hours, and I just know what a hard worker he is. So this is probably one of my favorite moments I've ever seen. Like, seriously, there's nothing that can top this.
And she's done some cool things herself, so that's saying a lot, GoJo.
It is saying a lot. Dad, do you have any idea who Livy Dunn is? Like, do you remember the whole Riz King drama and saga that we went through here, or have you wiped that from your mind?
No, I do know who she is. I still. So help me with this as we go forward, because, and let me first say, I hope she keeps making a ton of money on what she's doing, because she's making a ton of money. Good for her. I know she's doing gymnastics at LSU. Obviously, I do know this story. But how is it going to go afterward? Because I look at it's the Cavinder twins, right? Who were the social media sensation, and then they transferred, and then they both end up trying to go to WWE, which I scratched my head immediately and said, what the hell are they going to do there? And as it turns out, absolutely nothing. So now it didn't seem like it worked out for them once they got away what they were known for, which was basketball, which got them on the map, and then they took that over. They got away from that, and they kind of fell into obscurity, at least from my level. Maybe they didn't, but it seemed like they did. Now they tried outside of it. Now they're back into basketball again because nothing was working outside. So where does Livy Dunn go? Is she done at LSU with the gymnastics? I don't know. So like what's like next? This is some of the things I'm trying to understand with the internet and the influencers and things.
Oh, I mean, listen, you can be a full-time influencer now. There are plenty of people that have made that their livelihood once they've gotten that foothold in. So, Claudia, I don't have a lot of worries about that after the fact for someone who, especially for baseball, who we always talk about having a youth problem, is insanely popular with young people and on the places that young people go.
Yeah, I mean, she has major influence in general. I think the big concern right now is with TikTok, because they're trying to get rid of TikTok. So there's a lot of influencers out there scrambling. But luckily for her, this is going to sound mean, but she has talent. Some of the influencers out there, I'm sorry, but they like sit there and record them doing their makeup. If people want to see me do my makeup, I do it every single day. Every single day. I did it 8 times this week. If people want to pay me millions of dollars, I will take it. But she has more talent outside of that, senior, thankfully.
Claudia, I am with you 1,000%. I sit there and talk to my wife, Chris, and my daughter, Sydney, when we talk about this, and I just shake my head. I'm like, wait. People will sit there and watch somebody put makeup on, and they make millions of dollars for it. Again, more power to you. Keep making the money. Livy Dunn, I hope you continue to make millions, but it's a different world for me that I don't really understand.
Painful.
And somebody out there, pay Claudia millions of dollars to do her makeup for you. She's been out here doing it for free out of the kindness of her heart. She's ready to get called up to the bigs.
GoJo.
Man, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Man, I need if you're not watching on the DraftKings network, you need to get there. New Open just dropped, and spoiler alert, I've got my own 1989 Mike's version cover that I'm going to need framed for the background of this shot now, because that is oh my God, look at that. Resplendent. Wow. My whole aesthetic has kind of been a little more folklore and Evermore, but it translates well to 1989. Me and Taylor both born in the same year. What a time to be alive, Dad.
Does your dad understand that? That's Taylor Swift.
No,
Taylor Swift
absolutely
album. Not. Just so you know.
I mean, I knew the 1989 was the name of an album. I don't know what the picture was. I mean, the picture looked like he had a dirty shirt on, for all I know. I don't know.
Proud of you for knowing it was an album. You know what, Dad? That's a big step for you, and I'm very proud of you.
Here's what's amazing to me, and your mother was telling me this yesterday, that people are actually flying to Paris for her shows, flight, hotel, and tickets, because it's cheaper than going to a show here in the States, where some of the tickets are going for like $5,000 a ticket. It's actually cheaper for people to fly abroad to go to one of her concerts.
And GoJo, you can speak on this much better than I. However, I did see a video over the weekend of Bradley Cooper and Gigi Hadid with Travis Kelce. And I watched that video and said, that might be us three. And just guess which one is GoJo. If you're watching on DKN, take a look and tell us who you think is who. I don't think it'll be that hard, though. If you're not watching, there is one person flailing their arms high above their head and absolutely jamming out, while Travis and Bradley are just sort of standing there awkwardly not knowing what to do. If that's not what I picture GoJo as a concert, I don't know what is.
Oh, let me tell you, Claudia, as a 3-time Eras Tour attendee, I can assure you that is exactly my brand of awkward white man dancing going on in that frame. So, yes, Gigi, I am with you. I am of you. That is a true blue fan right there. And I get it. Travis is getting used to having all these cameras on him. He's being filmed at all times. So he's got to kind of go out there and make sure he looks cool and stays on brand and all that stuff. But Gigi's throwing caution to the wind, and that's kind of the way you got to rock on this tour, Dad.
Listen, Travis was unbelievably popular in the football world. We know that, but there's no doubt he has stepped up, right, to the people he is hanging with now. No question about it. Got to be interesting for him getting over that hump of first meeting some of these entertainment stars, or becoming kind of a natural thing. Mike, for you, now I know you've been at 3 concerts. I have been at none. I like her music. I'm a fan of hers, but I've not gone to the concerts. Do you sing at the top of your voice? Because you like to sing, you like to dance, you like to do all that. Do you do that at this concert?
Come on.
Of course. I leave completely hoarse and ruined. I am singing every word to every song at the top of my lungs with a bunch of people half my age, and it is a delight right now. No one's sure why the 34-year-old in the front row is on the verge of tears shouting the words to these songs, but that's not theirs to know. That's my truth to know. So yes, Dad, God, what a sweet question. Of course I am screaming all of these at the top of my lungs. You can go ask Mom and Jenny and Jake and Sydney and everyone else that the Eras Tour stopped with me in Vegas last year. I'm about that life, so much so that, yes, I'm still if you got to hook up on tickets for a Taylor Swift show abroad, any of you out there listening, and you're looking for a buddy to go with, I promise I am reckless enough to book flights almost anywhere at the drop of a hat. So the DMs are open. Let's make this happen. That would be like winning the lottery for me, Claudia. And speaking of winning the lottery, the Atlanta Hawks won the draft lottery in the NBA and got the exclusive right to draft somebody in a draft that seems to have zero juice outside of the fact that Bronny James is still in it. So I don't know what else we're supposed to do with that.
Yeah, despite a 3% chance too, which is the chances that I'll probably ever make it to a Taylor Swift concert, they did just that. The first pick, first time in franchise history. They went 36-46 this season for 10th place in the Eastern Conference. They had the 5th lowest odds by a team to win the #1 overall pick since the lottery began in 1985. You had the Wizards, the Rockets, and the Spurs rounding out the top 4. And the Detroit Pistons. Owners of the league's worst record this year fell to number 5, which makes the 2nd consecutive season they had the worst record, but fell to the 5th pick, which leads me to ask this question. Senior, do you agree with this system, or should they change it?
So it's interesting, both in the NBA and the NFL draft, especially the NBA, because I have heard when I was at ESPN, we were doing shows, people would talk about forget giving the worst record the number one pick. Give the team that just misses the playoffs, the first team out, the number one pick, and do it that way so nobody's tanking, so that you're trying and nobody's tanking to be the worst team. But as we've seen, the worst team doesn't always get the pick. This is what the fifth lowest percentage of being able to get the first pick in the draft history of the NBA at 3%, and they got it. I personally feel the NFL has it right, and I personally feel the worst team should get the first pick. I mean, I understand the tanking thing. I understand, again, when we say tanking, whenever we say tanking, it's not the players, It's what management decides to put out on the court as far as players to compete out there, whether they want to win or lose to try and get a better draft pick. I think that's the way to build. The worst team should get the first pick in the draft to try and build to get better. Obviously, you have free agency and you have trades to do it as well. But I've always been a believer in that, Mike, that the worst team should have the first pick. So while this becomes a TV watching thing every year on does the worst team actually get the first pick or do they not? I get it from the entertainment value, but I don't get it as far as the worst team, in my opinion, should get the first pick.
So I think we're coming from different angles. It depends on what you want. Because if you're talking about for the league and for parity and for things like that, then yeah, as a league, you're probably better off in most cases giving the worst team that opportunity. But the NBA had a big tanking problem. And since Adam Silver decided to change up the odds in the draft lottery, for 6 years now, we have had 6 straight years where the team with the worst record hasn't landed the top pick. So he has accomplished their goal as a league of deterring that kind of activity that had become something that was rampant between that and the play-in tournament for the NBA playoffs. I think you've got something that's kind of worked there. In general, Dad, as someone that always is going to skew pro player, I do think a system that rewards bad franchises with good players is one that's insanely unfair to the players. And so I generally tend to root against that and like what the NBA does a bit more here, because when you just reward people for being terrible and send great players into those environments, you tend to ruin a bunch of careers and continue to reward a bunch of bad owners whose only goal is to make enough money to go out there and justify their purchase of the franchise for having these franchises and putting enough butts in seats to get back to that point. So I think it's a system that's insanely anti-player in the way that it operates.
But how do you get better then? Because if you're a bad team and you aren't given the first pick to have supposedly the best player from college, and then also, if you're the worst team, you know what you're not attracting? You're not attracting free agents. And do you have assets to trade? So how are you supposed to get better if you're not getting what's considered the best or one of the best players from the level under you, which you're drafting from?
Most people with the draft and the alternatives they propose would be like a system almost like free agency where you've got a certain pool of money to work with on the draft and you can go out there and offer these rookies a deal and they can choose to take the best deal. So if you're a bad team, you might have to go out there and money whip somebody and offer them more in that initial go to try and get them over on that team. Or God forbid, you treat your organization like an asset that's worth investing in and you do the things necessary to be a good team and not just hope big NFL comes in and bails you out at the last minute by handing you a Joe Burrow that just happens to be good enough to force you to actually go out there and compete. Make other parts of your organization competitive. Hire better coaches. Make sure you're investing in your front office. Do all these things so you can find and acquire talent at a higher clip and not just, again, hope for a bailout from somebody else.
Yeah, I will disagree on that. I just think the worst team should get the opportunity to have the best player. I get what you're saying about do better, do more, but some of these coaches are hired with the intent of it working out, and it doesn't work out. We always sit there and grade, that's an A+, that coach getting hired by this team, and then the team stinks, and the coach gets fired after 2 years. So you never know with a new coach, especially a first-time coach, how it's going to be.
I'm not putting it all on the coach, though. I'm saying scouting, the front office, the people that you employ in their ownership and the way they employ, they go out and attack the franchise anyway. I'm saying it's bigger than the coach, too. I'm not totally lumping them in on this, but I'm just saying you don't actually incentivize these franchises to be better franchises and operate like winning outfits.
I agree that it's more than the coaches, but again, you could just think you're hiring good people and they just don't get it done. And then you have to go through and rehire and do it more. I just think you need to give the worst team a chance by giving them the best player, Claudia.
What if you did like a strike system? So if we went with what you're saying, Senior, the worst record gets the best player. But if there's signs of them tanking in the regular season, like sitting the starters or trying to hide something, maybe this would get complicated. But I feel like that's a way around it. Is it not? No?
Well,
I think we're trying to legislate intent there, which can get a little bit dangerous, especially because the NFL, Dad, it's a lot more difficult to try and even tank in a game as chaotic, complicated, and with as many bodies on the field as the NFL. Spencer Hall has written about this before, the great college football writer, but football is almost too big, clunky, and stupid a game to tank with because you quite literally have an oblong-shaped ball.
I completely agree. And with basketball, you know, the way to do it is going to be sitting starters and maybe saying they're injured when they're not, or just sitting them. And then does a player, if the power the players have, does one, if he moves teams, speak badly about that team he left, saying, you know what, they sat me and I wasn't hurt, you know, because obviously there is tanking. But I don't know. I am just have always been a believer. Maybe this is the old school in me. And unless I hear, and right now I have not heard of a better system. To me, that again, this is entertainment. Sitting there from one night.
I try.
And no, I don't agree that it's a better system. So until I hear of a better system, I am going to stick with what I have said.
Okay, Mike Golic Sr. in favor of management. Sad to see for a former member of the NFL Players Association. I'm not going to read too much more into that one, but going to let him move on and instead focus on the fact that the Atlanta Hawks won the number 1 overall pick in a draft that's got almost zero juice in it right now.
Zero.
Like looking down, once I saw this, I was like, all right, who's the number 1 pick going to be? Because the last few years we've talked about this infusion of players from Europe into the NBA at an even higher clip than we're used to seeing. And last year, we got lucky because Victor Wembanyama was so tantalizing that all these highlights that started making their way over from France and from this incredible 7'4" unicorn were enough for us to go, all right, and all these smart basketball people are saying, hey, you got a dude here, and so we didn't worry about it too much. But there seems to be no real consensus on the number 1 overall pick. Kevin O'Connor over at The Ringer has Alex Parr from the Perth Wildcats, another French big man at the top of the board here. But, Dad, this is kind of your more traditional big man. He's a 7'1" rim runner, not with the outside game or ball handles of a guy like Wemby, and not a guy who seems to be even the slam dunk pick for the top 1 overall here. Nikola Topic from, I think, Serbia. So you get a lot of guys from overseas, a lot of G League Ignite players in the top, a couple of UConn guys mixed in there. And if Donovan Clingan is the 3rd guy off the board for some people's mocks, he was a really good player in the NCAA tournament, but I don't know how many of us watched him and went, yes, that is the next version of transcendent NBA big man that you forsake your future to try and get on your basketball team. It just doesn't seem like there's a dude like that in this draft.
So a confluence of circumstances, this draft, because of what you just said, no real juice at the top. You know what this draft is going to be about? Bronny James is staying in the draft. This draft is going to be about where is he drafted in the 2nd round, or is he drafted at all? And will he match up with LeBron somewhere? Remember, LeBron has till June 30th to decide whether he's picking up that option or not to stay there. So that's what this draft is about. There's no juice at the top. So it's going to be about, can LeBron pull off what he talked about, Claudia, years ago, playing with his son Bronny, who is staying in the draft, I believe, at this point.
And we do have the odds at the DraftKings Sportsbook. The tab is Bronny James. Which team will Bronny James be drafted to in the 2024 NBA draft? The Lakers are the favorite at plus 180. 76ers at 10-1 next. Thunder tied with them, and the Cavs. So a 3-way tie between the 3 of them, but the Lakers are the favorite here. GoJo.
That sound you hear is television producers all clapping their hands together because they have just been given the runway for more LeBron James tangent content heading into the summer. And my brothers and sisters in Christ, when that opportunity knocks at the door, you open up and you answer and you enjoy the ratings that follow. So we will all be on. But Panda Watch has become Bronny Watch in the lead up to the NBA draft. In the meantime, talking drafts, Claudia, we did have one recently in the NFL. And it's interesting always to see how a lot of these NFL teams work with and work around their rookie quarterbacks and the way they talk about them. And I thought it was kind of refreshing to see Chicago just be like, oh yeah, no, Caleb Williams is our starter and we're not going to overthink this at all.
Yeah, he was asked about it, Eberflus, and he said, quote, no conversation, he is the starter. So he wasted no time. We can talk about what Mayo did with May over in New England, but I do want to talk about this Bears situation. I mean, this isn't a surprise. You don't draft a quarterback at number 1 overall and don't have him as the starting quarterback, especially getting rid of Justin Fields. Senior, opinion on this? Do you think this is good, bad? Should other teams and coaches be doing this?
You're right. Any first-round quarterback, especially the number 1 pick, it's just a matter of time. Everybody on the roster, especially the quarterbacks, know it's just a matter of time. The only outlier in all this has been the Green Bay Packers, right? The last couple of times, and having their first-round quarterback, not first pick, but first-round quarterback, sit for a few years, and it's paid off for them what looks to be another time with Jordan Love. You also look at who's on the roster, right? The other quarterbacks, Tyson Bagent and Brett Ripien. I mean, you don't call either one of those quarterbacks a bridge quarterback. I know Bagent got a little bit of, the 15 minutes of fame when he started some games when Fields was hurt, but there's no one that says, oh yeah, he'll bridge the time. So I am always been a firm believer in putting your guy in as soon as you don't think the bright lights are too heavy. Now, we have no idea yet because there are no bright lights. It's OTAs, it's going to be mini camps, it's going to be training camp. But I love this. And I hear others saying, man, if you put them in too early and you might deal with them mentally. You know what? Let me find that out. If my guy can't handle it mentally, let me find out. Okay. So I have no problem with this at all. Clear cut. He's the guy. He steps into the huddle day one as the starter. Everybody on the team knows he's the starter. Eventually, they like him to be the leader, but So I think, and again, because there is no bridge guy, unlike New England, which we can talk about, I completely like this move. Absolutely like this move.
Well, that's why I think it's interesting because with Gerard Mayo in charge, he said, Drake May's got a long way to go. They came out and were kind of candid with that at the beginning, and who knows the truth of that or if that's just the tone they want to set there. But with Chicago, Dab, it's been almost collaborative from the start. Shane Waldron's their offensive coordinator coming over after a few years in Seattle, but they've allowed Caleb Williams, quarterback coach, to come into the building, which there's been, especially in the Russell Wilson era of quarterback, a lot of discrepancies about how much of the individual personnel and the crew around these players do you allow in the building in that way. And the Bears have said, no, we're going to try and get as much information to Caleb and his camp early on so he can hit the ground running here. We're going to make sure he feels as comfortable as possible in this building for everything that he needs to go out and be successful. And for all the things we've talked about as Caleb Williams is one of the first true Gen Z quarterbacks in the NFL, the approach sounds insanely professional, but I do think it's interesting. We talked about the NFL jump. You're a collaborator. You're a peer with your coaches once you become a veteran player. The Bears are basically saying right off jump, no, we want to meet you halfway in a lot of different ways, not just with the way we structure offense, but with the way that we initiate you into our building and our culture.
And you say, Drake May over in New England, they said he has a long way to go. All these rookie quarterbacks have a long way to go. Some pick it up quicker than others, like we saw C.J. Stroud do last year. So I agree with that. And as far as New England, the difference there, they have Jacoby Brissett, who is a very big-time veteran and a trustworthy quarterback, so you don't have to throw Drake May in there. The one thing I do like, Mike, though, is remember the Patriots a couple of years ago having defensive guys run the offense. Now you've got Alex Van Pelt as the OC, T.C. McCartney, quarterback coach, Ben McAdoo as a senior assistant. You are giving your new quarterback a lot of actually offensive-minded people the job of bringing him along. So that's a good move by New England, unlike a couple of years ago when you're like, what the hell are they doing to help their young quarterback?
What an insanely low bar we have set for these professional organizations. If that's a statement that we can come out and say, and it has merit. That is so sad, because you're right. Alex Van Pelt, I think, is a fascinating merger of offense with player where we saw what he did last year, albeit not calling the plays with Kevin Stefanski as the head coach and pairing that with Drake May. But the fact that we have to say, because the defensive coordinator and special teams coach aren't coaching the offense, he might have a chance. Dear God.
Yes, it's time for the all-weekend teams, the best of the best from the weekend that we have not touched yet. GoJo, what do you got?
Yes, excited for this. Honorable mention, second team, first team from a very crowded sports weekend here to celebrate here. We'll start it off with honorable mention, Dad, and I want to give the shout out to A'ja Wilson here, WNBA superstar, now getting her signature shoe. You remember there was a lot of conversation around Caitlin Clark and the upcoming class of young WNBA superstars, and Caitlin Clark's impending Nike deal at that time shined a light on the fact that it seemed to be a lot of white female athletes in the W that were getting shoe deals, as opposed to a league primarily built by black women, and whom is the major star right now. A'ja Wilson is a multi-time MVP. The Las Vegas Aces are back-to-back champions, and so she now gets it. She got to show it off in a cool way. They were going back to South Carolina where she played her college ball and has a bleeping statue outside of the arena, and she was wearing a shirt that said, "Of course I have a shoe.com," with a URL that directed you to the page where she's going to have this whole signature line. So a cool moment. They were going to play, I believe it was Team USA going to play Puerto Rican national team, or the Aces going to play the Puerto Rican national team in a game there where she got to unveil this. So cool moment, a long time coming for currently pound for pound the best player in the WNBA.
Yeah. I mean, just the arrow continues in that direction for women's sports, and certainly the WNBA, which how they have grown. We talked about monetarily going from 60 million revenue, gross revenue a year or two ago to 200 million, and just how everything's getting up there. So good for her. Congrats to her. You're right. You know, the best player, or one of, not in the team picture, if not the best of what she is doing. My honorable mention is going to go to J.D. Martinez from the Mets. Now, the Mets played Atlanta on Saturday, and Atlanta won the game 4-1. But the story here was the collaborative effort by the Atlanta pitching staff to get a no-hitter. They were on their third pitcher, ninth inning, 2 outs, and they had a no-hitter going against the Mets. J.D. Martinez comes up, and we have seen people break up no-hitters before. We've seen them break up no-hitters in the ninth before. But you don't see it a lot of times. It's broken up with an oppo home run, right? Opposite field home run by Martinez. I mean, what a way to do it. You are 1 out away from throwing that no-hitter, and you see that ball get tagged, and you can do nothing but watch it go over the fence saying, damn, this one is done for us. As I said, they still get the win, which is cool, but not a lot of great opportunities for no-hitters, and this one foiled by one J.D. Martinez.
Wow, that stat from StatMuse for people not watching on the DraftKings network. The first player to spoil a no-hitter, and this is the ultimate baseball stat with like 1 million filters on it.
Yeah,
the first player to spoil a no-hitter in the ninth with 2 outs with a home run since 1998 is an incredibly baseball-specific stat. Brandon Newman, our producer, would call that an ESPN stat, and he is absolutely right in the specificity there. So cool way to bust up the party there. Dad, let's talk about ending the party. All weekend, second team here. Kylian Mbappe finally announcing that he's going to leave PSG after the finish of this season here. One of the brightest stars in the world in professional football came to Twitter with the video announcing that he was going to leave PSG. Most people assume that means he's going to head to Real Madrid. This has kind of been a years-long saga, which is why this feels noteworthy, because we've been dancing around this forever. There was the flirtation with the Saudis for a while, who were trying to throw $1 billion at Kylian Mbappe, who we've seen star on the World Cup stage. He had the unbelievable duel with Lionel Messi in the last World Cup, where he was going off and looked like the best player on planet Earth. And so he's going to end his time at the French club and now head over, more than likely, to one of the other name brands in world football in Real Madrid. So a great moment for them, and just finally the end of this will he, won't he saga.
And just what he's going to get paid too. I mean, the money that flies around in soccer is absolutely incredible. So congrats to him. We'll see what ends up going on with him, what he ends up signing for. My second team is going to be in the LPGA, Rose Zhang, and what she did. The 2-time NCAA champ. She's just 20 years old. She won last year in her professional debut. She won in the first tournament she was in, joined the tour the following week. So young player, birdied 4 of the last 5 holes to win this weekend. But her win also helped stop Nelly Korda was going for a 5th straight tournament win. and she ended up finishing 7th, so she didn't get there. So that streak was broken. But what Rose Zhang is doing, again, at 20 years old, is absolutely incredible, taking this tour by storm, especially last year when she first jumped on it. As I said, 2-time NCAA champ. It's just incredible to see. Obviously, Nelly Cordes had a great streak going, and wouldn't be shocked if she does it again. But got to give a little shout out to the person who stopped that streak, the winner that stopped Nelly Cordes.
Yeah, no, Nelly Cordes, though, has had a hell of a run. Saw she was at the Met Gala, too. Like, she's getting to that point where if she keeps winning even close to this level, you're going to see another one of those breakthrough superstars that's just so good. And once you wind up in those mainstream celebrity places, too, it's always interesting to watch these situations kind of supernova. So hopefully that can pick up. But congratulations to Rose for going out there and slaying what had been women's professional golf's dragon for the time being. But speaking of slaying the dragons, Dad, number 1, first team all weekend pick for me as we're getting ready for softball's postseason right now. The College World Series and the men's and women's sides are nearing, and we got the seeding last night for the Women's College World Series. And folks, Texas is back. And it has to feel particularly good, Dad. Oklahoma softball has been a dominant force of nature's fury. They've won the last 3 Women's College World Series championships. They've been the 1 seed each of the last 5 years. And this year they get edged out by a Texas team that is certainly their bitter rival, and a Texas team that they just beat. OU won, I think, their 9th Big 12 tourney title this weekend, beating Texas, but the Longhorns had won 16 straight to end the regular season. They beat Oklahoma twice in that run, and so they edged them out for the number 1 seed, where it seems like right now it is Texas, Oklahoma, and then a bit of a gap before everybody else as we head to the Women's College World Series. So congrats to the Longhorns here. Edging out your rival in a big way like that always has to feel pretty cool.
Oklahoma's been so dominant. So, yeah, to see, especially, like you said, your rival, not only it happening, but by your rival as well. My first team, now this happened a couple of weekends ago, but my fault for not giving this man his due. And Mike, this is an event you and I both love. World's Strongest Man competition. Tom Stoltzman was the winner of it. It's his 3rd win, 6'8", 400 pounds. I mean, just a monster, called the Albatross and also the King of the Stones. And he says, I don't really care about being King of the Stones. I want to be King of the World. At 6'8", 400 pounds, he had won 2 in a row, lost last year to the guy he beat this year, who took 2nd, Mitchell Hooper, and then he won again this year for the 3rd time. So he's tied Bill Kazmir for the 3 wins. Pujanowskis from Poland has 5 wins. He has the most, and there are a few that have 4 wins. This guy says he wants to be considered the greatest of all time. Mike, I don't even think he's 30 yet. The dude is an absolute horse. I love this competition. I know you and Jake love this competition. Do you have like a favorite event in this competition when you watch?
I mean, the Atlas Stones are the most iconic. The fingers were always great. I always enjoyed the Iron Cross, too, just because it's so insanely difficult. You can pick up a couple of dumbbells in your local gym and feel how stressful that is, and they're usually doing it with like a battle axe or something cool like that. So all of it feels incredibly like ancient Rome or Greek mythology, which, as we know, men constantly are thinking about the Roman Empire, and so this is probably the version where it's a bunch of beefy lads just doing really strong stuff in there. And I appreciate that you've tried to distract me from the fact that your all-weekend team involves something that happened weekends ago, and you expect to just pass that through.
Yeah, I do. You know what? If you don't like it, tell Tom Stoltzman, who I gave the award to, that you don't like it. Go ahead, tell him. Tell him. Tell the 6'8", 400-pound world's strongest man. Go ahead, tell him. Tell him you don't like what I did. Tell him you don't like me giving him a little love. That's my fault. I was late on it. It should have been last weekend. It's my bad. I get it, but I'm giving it to him now. If you want to say I broke the rules, that's fine. I will do it for the world's strongest man. I will do anything to get on the good side of the world's strongest man.
I realize now I have lived long enough to see my father, who I grew up idolizing and wanting to be in so many ways, now cowering behind this mountain of a man and pointing from behind the legs of the world's strongest man, saying, you tell him that you're upset that I didn't play within the confines of the show that's got my name on it here. This is a sobering day for me as a son.
I hate you.
That was cool.
Yes. Yes. Put me on the cover of a Gordon Lightfoot album. Legend lives on from the Chippewa down to the big lake they call Gitchagumi. That was awesome. Growl, that is just awesome. Man. Saw him
It's
in
actually
concert
incredibly fitting. It's exactly how skinny you are.
I'm just glad you said the name because I had no idea what album that was. So now I know.
Well, I mean, I that I can understand, Claudia. Gordon Lightfoot, one of the great storytellers in his songs of all time. We actually, me and my wife, and actually Jake as well, saw him a couple of times when he was in his 80s, and it was tough at times, but you just kind of closed your eyes and thought about him when he was a little younger and how he sang. But man, he was out there doing it. May rest in peace. He was out there doing it for as long as he can. Listen, it's like all these guys touring now. They just either go back out on the road or just keep touring. This is what they do. Our buddy Darius Rucker says I'm gonna die on stage, man. I mean, they are just gonna do this until the bitter end.
I say it's like college football. It's like really like coaches in general and that profession. They don't know their life without that routine and the feeling that comes with it. And I'd imagine the drug of being on stage in front of all those people is one that's hard to come down off the high of. So for anyone listening on the podcast or anywhere else, my father now immortalized on the cover of a Gordon Lightfoot album as he's sitting around leading up into the break. And everyone's like, oh, we got this new open we're debuting. We're so excited about it. And we're like, Senior, we got your album cover. Mine was on a Taylor Swift one. And my dad starts singing The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And I could see everyone's wheels turning because no one's quite sure if they know what he's singing or who is singing it. Did we get the album cover right? Is it the right place that we're all at? Because we're a bunch of young people drowning in a sea of my dad's love for Gordon Lightfoot. So thankfully, everybody nailed it. Shout out to the staff. Shout out to Gordon Lightfoot. May he rest in peace. Claudia, let's get to cash it or trash it as we look ahead to more. Like the NBA playoffs, we talked about it before, have beaten the allegations. Nobody talking about ratings or anything like that, but we thought this round might have been a wash the way it started out going into the weekend. And now we all of a sudden walk into a new week with a ton of juice around all this action.
Yeah, they've been tight. I'm excited. We got a pair of Game 4s, and I just want to say I'm feeling inspired now. I'm going to go listen to that album later on. Hopefully feel inspired for...
No, you're not.
Well... maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Celtics at Cavs, Boston leading 2-1. Thunder at Mavs, Dallas leading 2-1 after the Game 3 win, which leads us to cash it or trash it because the Mavs opened as the -2.5 point favorite, quickly moved down, guys, to 1.5. We're seeing some ones out there. On the money line, they opened -140. We're seeing 20 cents or more of movement. So lots of Thunder money coming in here. Cash it or trash it, presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned to hear everything DraftKings has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Agent eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details. Senior, cashing or trashing Mavs as the favorite. Now that the number is down, you can bet them on the money line around -120 or to win by a point.
Yeah, this one is at home for Dallas, down 2-1. I don't think I can cash them, Claudia. I think I'm going to go with Oklahoma City on this one. We sit there and talk about the running on fumes of the Knicks as a whole. Luka Doncic, I mean, dude is got the knee working, the other knee's getting ripped up a little bit, and then he lands directly on his back coming to the end of that game, and he's got that too, just getting beat up. So the thing about it is, though, they do have Kyrie picking it up and a trade deadline acquisition of P.J. Washington. Yeah. When we talk about Aaron Gordon for Denver, what P.J. Washington has done in the last couple of games for Dallas and what he has been able to do has been fantastic. Another guy to count on. But, Mike, I don't think I can cash Dallas on this one, though.
Something about it just feels like I got to ride with these guys. Now, we talked about Oklahoma City early in the series. In a Game 1 microcosm, I thought, oh, man, they had an answer for every punch that the Mavs were throwing. And then since then, it's been a Dallas team that's been able to lean on that sturdy veteran leadership. Like, we think about all these young teams, and I don't think we lump Luka into that same conversation just because despite his young age right now, he's been in the NBA for a while, and he's been a professional for a long time in terms of a basketball player overseas than here. But you couple that with what Kyrie Irving has become now, which is back to being like the incredibly thoughtful basketball player in terms of off the court, the kinds of things and answers that he's giving. And on the court, someone that we talked about, Luka feels very comfortable deferring to for what feels like the first time in his career. And so I don't know if PJ Washington can keep scoring at this clip. 27 the game before, or 25 the game before, 27 this last game. He's been lights out, especially from beyond the arc. The others have also performed very well. Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively have both stepped up as rim running centers for this team and lob guys for Kyrie Irving. So I think they've got enough of a supporting cast, though, to get this done, even if Luka Doncic is absolutely a guy that seems like he's going to start off every game grimacing, working down the court before turning it on late if the rest of this group can get him to the finish line.
How do you think the fan bases will feel? Well, I think we know in Orlando, I think they were the 5th seed, and they're knocked out of the playoffs now. But we look at how young they are, and we're like, wow, arrow is up on them. Will Oklahoma City and Minnesota fans feel the same way if they were, a 1-3, but really that Minnesota 3 seed? I mean, there were 3 teams at the top, including Denver, that if Oklahoma City and Minnesota both lose, would their fan base, could they still be like, well, we're a young team, with Anthony Edwards, just 22. SGA is in the talk for MVP. I wonder if they would feel kind of the same way of, we're young, we're building, we'll get him next year. Or, hey, we're there right now, we should be getting it done.
Well, I think the Thunder especially can look at what SGA has done and say, okay, I feel pretty good about the fact if we can get him a little bit of help, we'll probably go a long way in the regular and the postseason next year. Because as I'm looking at their postseason stats right now, it's him averaging almost 30 points a game. He's there when it comes to the assists, to the steals. He's helping out with rebounds. There's 2 other players in double digits. We look at that game. He dropped 31, the last one, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 blocks, and a steal. Just 3 other players in double digits and just barely over 10 points. So I think if I were to be a Thunder fan, and now I'm sort of a Minnesota fan, I'm rooting for them, I would feel okay, GoJo, because I don't think the ceiling was set very high for either of them.
Well, and I think the NBA in particular is a league where postseason experience matters so much. We've seen 1 seeds historically that haven't been used to playing here because you got to think about what goes into that. A team like Oklahoma City has been playing their ass off the entire season. We see a lot of these veteran players, between the actual load management that goes on or just the understanding of when to ramp up and when to actually put the foot down on the gas, kind of hold their best stuff until the postseason and care a little bit less about seeding because they know once they get there, we know the intensity, we know how to operate and manage our bodies during the course of these long series, this season full of series now that they have to go through. So I think we've seen young 1 seeds historically have some trouble because of that, especially in recent history. So I think you're right. I think you take away is, hey, we feel like we got a star we can build around. And for Oklahoma City and Minnesota both, between SGA, who is one of the MVP finalists, and between Anthony Edwards, who seems like his name is now going to be firmly in those conversations from here on out. Yeah, I think you're ecstatic and doing backflips, and now you're trying to see if, hey, the rest of that group around there, for Oklahoma City, a very young core that you think you can build around with SGA. And with Minnesota, I think one that you'll have some interesting questions about going forward. Can you consistently count on Karl Anthony Towns to go out there and be that running mate there? Rudy Gobert offers you Defensive Player of the Year quality stuff when it's in the regular season, but in the postseason in the Western Conference that belongs to the best big on planet Earth right now, can they be counted on in that same way? There's some questions surrounding there, but Dad, you got the pieces to build around that should make you excited about the future.
And real quick on the other game, I just don't see that series turning into a 7-game series with Boston and Cleveland. I think Boston continues, take a little more charge in this one in Cleveland tonight.
Yeah, Boston should run away and hide with this one, but I will go ahead and cash the Mavs winning this game. Dad is going to trash that one, and we'll see if Oklahoma City can start to stave off that boogeyman, because even if you are excited about the future, being the 1 seed and getting knocked out before the conference finals would sting something. You never know. Look at a team like the Sacramento Kings that all of a sudden felt like they were on to something last year and slipped mightily going into this season. There's no guarantees year to year, even in this league. All right, guys, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories. Send you into the rest of your day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating, please, for the love of God. And check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. And if you miss any of us live there, you can check out the best of GoJo and Golic from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. Wherever you hear VSiN on the radio, you will also hear Claudia Bellafato there hosting the Lombardi line with Michael Lombardi from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern today. So make sure you check that out as well. But if you miss any of us live or any of that good stuff or our guests that usually roll through here, you can get all that wherever you get your podcast right here as soon as we get done with YouTube. And guys, let's get to this. I thought post, Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef and everything that went on there, we were done. And then we had a little bit of basketball and football beef that got sparked off by Austin Rivers, saying he could find 30 NBA players to go play in the NFL right now. And football and basketball Twitter, I thought, traded some fun barbs. It was kind of like a normal beef where, hey, we all went around here and we made some content out of it, but no one really got in their feelings about everything. And then some people had to make it a little bit personal, and that included Shannon Sharpe and Shaquille O'Neal, who now seem to have escalated their diss into a full-on diss track. Shaquille O'Neal, who operates under the name Shaq Diesel or DJ Diesel, has a history of getting in front of the microphone and dissing people. Shout out to the Kobe line from years ago after that 2008 or 2009 finals. Shaq fired off a shot. Let's take a listen and see what everybody thinks about Shaq dissing Shannon Sharpe on this track.
Oh no, Shannon Sharpe, man, you're way beneath me. Your whole demeanor is faker than new rapper Beefy. You're soft, before you get fly, you rather tweet me. I was in 3 different cars when you was in 3 feet. All I see is dollar signs, they come in 3D. Make it hot, ain't no way around my degree. You are not in my spot, you are like a peewee. Shula got them calling me Rocky the way I reread. I get to the...
It's a bop.
Wow.
It's fine. Like it's
Shaq Diesel.
It's fine. It doesn't go too far, which is great. Like it didn't get weird. I saw I think Austin Rivers and Aaron Jones got in, or not Aaron Jones, one of the other former Packers that's over on Fox Sports 1 got into it a little bit. So this didn't cross any lines, Dad. I feel like this is fine, good fun.
I started reading about it and then I stopped because I realized I don't care. I'm sorry. If that's, come on, it's into the sporting world. I love Shaq, though. I think Shaq is hilarious. Shannon basically jumped into this saying that Shaq was jealous because, he's never in the talk of greatest of all time. And Shaq going back with, if you're not in the top 10 at your position, you can't even talk to me. And I started reading that. I'm like, okay, I'm done. These are 2 great players, great Hall of Famers, without question. I just don't need it. I did like the beginning of the TNT show yesterday. Right in the beginning, it was brought up a little bit of kind of a way of bringing up this diss track. And Shaq said, "Oh, that was AI. That wasn't me." The old
the
AI
parlance of our
excuse,
times there.
Yes. I read it. It does nothing for me. I don't go in depth on this. I don't care, Mike. I really don't care.
This is kind of what sports media has become, though, Dad, where it's a little bit of the barstoolification of it all, where if you're not kind of a character in the sideshow, you're not playing the game the right way, and the checks that everybody involved receives kind of reflect that. So we need to start figuring out who we want to beef with and how we're going to make ourselves part of the story here, because we're lagging behind the competition right now, and we can't have that. Speaking of that, Claudia, let's get to it here. Tyreek Hill at a gas station. Interesting.
Yeah, somebody took a video, saw his car, which is the McLaren, said, "Hey, that's a really nice car. What do you do for work?" And here's what he said.
What do you do for a living to afford such a beautiful car?
I'm a plumber, bro.
Damn, and you could have such a car at being a plumber? You own the plumbing company?
Nah, my dad does, though.
So he gave you this car, or it's a rental?
Nah, this mine, bro.
Damn, yeah.
I've been a plumber for 15 years, bro.
A plumber for 15 years, he says.
See, I love that.
You know what? Shout out to Nepo Baby Plumber, Tyreek Hill. Gotta support that.
I do love how he threw that in. My dad owns the company. And then the dude right away, so he bought you that car, or is it a rental? I love that. He just did it so matter-of-factly. That was cool.
Yeah, someone with a little bit of experience in that. I'm coming off a weekend where I watched a lot of the John Mulaney Netflix special, Everybody's in LA, where he was constantly asking everyone what car they drove. So seeing people with the gall to do that at a gas station, it seemed like the guy recording kind of knew who he was recording, and everyone was playing their part in this. It did make me think, Dad, you've been famous for a long time, and I know a lot of famous people when they go and like go to hotels and check in will check in under different names to try not to draw any sort of ruckus when they're on the way in. Have you had to resort to that at all as you have ascended to the heights of your powers?
Yeah, there are sometimes I will check in as Michael Golic instead of Mike Golic to try and really throw people off the scent. You know what I mean? Really try. That's how I kind of mix it up on them.
That's smart.
Man, I used to just like for fun some nights, especially if it was like with Uber drivers, because sometimes you get an Uber driver that gets a little chatty and they want to talk about stuff, and maybe you don't feel like talking about sports after a long day or necessarily in that way, or out at a bar just to kind of have some fun. I would go out and I would say I was Rock Hoover, and I played on the minor league hockey team in the Hartford area, the Hartford Wolfpack there, because I had enough friends who played hockey in college. I kind of had a working knowledge of the junior system at that time, and I knew enough of the lingo to get by, and it was just kind of a fun side plot there. Claudia, I'm not sure if you've ever had to pull this card or not here, but Rock Hoover, by the way, homage to Mark Schlereth's character on Guiding Light, the name that he went under there for years ago when he was coming on Mike and Mike with you guys.
Same exact thing, GoJo. At bars, I would say I'm Brittany. I don't know, it's the first thing that came to mind. And one dude was like, no, you're not. I watch you on TV. Your name's Claudia. I was like, yeah, you're right there. So I stopped doing that. And then one time I was in an Uber, and this guy's talking about sports, and he's like, oh, you probably don't know much about sports, but he couldn't see me, clearly. He's like, there's this one girl. He's like, I don't know her name, but she's pretty good. She's on Nest and blah, blah, blah. She knows her stuff. I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting. I never even told him it was my name. My friend texted me and like 3 weeks later and was like, I have an Uber driver who's talking about you. So thank God I didn't tell the man that was me, because I could have got kidnapped. Because clearly
there you go.
He liked me.
How about it?
Clearly into you, but clearly also still caked in enough misogyny to assume the woman in the back seat didn't know anything about sports, despite the fact that he was enamored with the woman on TV who knows a lot about sports.
Get it all the time, man. It's the best.
Amazing. Going full circle on Mike, you asked me if I give a different name, and going to me being on the album cover for Gordon Lightfoot. The great Chris Berman, Boomer over at ESPN, guy I was a teammate with for years. Listen, he was about as popular as could be. He would check into a hotel and he would use the name Edmund Fitzgerald from the wreck of the Edmund. That's a name he would use when he went into a hotel. So then for sure, people like Claudia would have no idea that would be a fake name.
Yeah, I'd say, and then boom, then he would open his mouth and remove all doubt of what was going on. Claudia, let's get to the third here quickly with Victor Wembanyama putting us on Black Hole Game.
Yeah, Wemby spoke to some kids at San Antonio Education Center and Planetarium before his rookie press conference, and when he was asked what he talked to them about, it was dark matter, apparently.
What's dark matter?
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, yeah, you know, I like these kind of questions. Those are different. Dark matter is some like a mass we can't see, but we know it's there because it's got influence on gravitational pulls and, you know, the speed of gravitational orbits in every galaxies, and its, you know, its presence inside galaxies is 5 times higher than regular seeable matter. So it's a huge mystery. And we can't see it, we can't observe it, but we can observe its influence.
So he is an alien. GoJo.
Yeah, listen, Dad, dark matter, according to Wikipedia, is defined as a hypothetical form of matter that appears to not interact with light or an electromagnetic field, but is implied gravitational effects, which cannot be explained by general relativity. I'm sure that's all stuff you get.
Much like what you just did there, I stopped listening after speed of gravitational orbits. When he had another 4 lines, my eyes glazed over. Space gets me. I love it. I think it's cool. But when you start explaining it, and so much, just what he said, we can't observe it, but we can observe its influence. That stuff just blows my mind of what's out there, how much is out there. I can't rationalize it, so I just stopped listening. I'm going to go have a drink.
We've established on this show, unless you're a Canadian troubadour explaining the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, my dad doesn't care.